and call this meeting to order. We will begin with the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion, Jill.
Okay,
I'll second it.
I gotta admit somebody here just a minute. Thank you. All right. Motion is made by Sagatol, seconded by Boleen. Any discussion or anything that needs to be added or subtracted or any changed, Mr. Bransoy?
No, there's 3 items on there, and so that's, I do not have anything else to add unless somebody else wishes to add anything, so.
All right. Let's see, with that, we will vote, and we'll begin with Jamie.
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
I haven't seen Jeff. Jeff, are you on? Jeff? And I myself, I am an aye. Motion carries. I know Sandy had let me know she is not going to be here tonight, but I have not heard from Jeff, so we will keep going on. All right, under Mr. Bransoy is going to mute his.
Sorry about that. There we go.
All right, good deal.
Thank you.
We'll keep moving on here. New business, number 1, discussion information on bond referendum. And who's gonna start?
Okay, we got, Ryan is here tonight with ICS, and he has 2 handouts for you that we're gonna take a look at tonight, and there's some options on there that we can look at what possibly want to include in a referendum as we move forward. So with that, I'll turn over to Ryan, and he can explain the different options you've got with the bond referendum.
Yeah, so hopefully, I think these were sent out to you this weekend at some point, so hopefully you've had some time to take a look, review those. Basically tonight, our goal is, the review and comment is due by the 13th, which is Friday, right? So we have to decide, in essence, what's going into the review and comment. So this is kind of a domino effect, which means we have to have all of our decisions made about what's in a referendum. So, and again, we've talked about this in the past, the review and comment is the document that gets submitted to the Department of Education. The review and comment is not the official process to go forward with the referendum. And it's a little ahead, it's flip-flopped, but we're doing, the Department of Education requires a review time, and that review time is what makes us submit it actually before the board approves a resolution for an election. That approval for resolution of election is at your November 23rd meeting. So this is to decide what goes in the review and comment for the Department of Education. But it's a good precursor, because then it pretty much gets everything nailed down and decided for what's in the bond referendum. So if all else fails and we are deciding that we're not going out for referendum, no harm, no foul, we just call the Department of Education and say, take that thing away. But this is the first step. So let me open the ones here that I have. You have 2 items in front of you. You have a scope outline. I'm sorry that it's small and hard to read, but you know how these things go with trying to print out this stuff on a piece of paper. So we've seen this kind of outline before. It's just kind of, it's in a new format, but it hopefully a cleaner format. You can see at the top is Bird Island Elementary School, then the Olivia Junior Senior High, a new pre-K-12 building, and then other components. So those are all items so far that we've always talked about that has been part of the discussion of a referendum. Most of them are pretty well solidified, and there's probably not a whole lot of discussion about what they are or what's included. But you can see at the bottom of the piece of paper, I have kind of what our action items are. And the first action item is the decision of what's happening with the Bird Island Elementary School. So of course, the board at the previous board meeting elected to close that building. So now we can start to determine what's going to happen with it. We have in the planning process up to this point included in a referendum question the demolition of that building, basically getting it back to a blank slat of land to be sold or exchanged or whatever you want for that. There has been a lot of discussion with the Bird Island EDA and other groups in Bird Island with the possibility of using that building in some capacity instead of demolishing it. So this is where the board comes into play. What if any amount in a referendum do you want to include for that building? And we've talked about options previously. I think the EDA or at least the committee that was formed sent a letter this weekend as well, kind of outlining what they see use of the building is, kind of very, very clearly saying that they really want you guys to do what you can to keep that building or get that building, I think the word is whole, quote unquote, WHOLE, whole, so that they can then use it for the tasks or the occupants that they laid out there. I don't believe, Dale must differently, but they didn't come out and explicitly say, we would like you to include X amount. They provided an estimate of what they feel like would make that building whole. And I believe that was just north of $6 million. So I would assume that's kind of the starting point, right? For them to say, they're not asking for $6 million, but they're saying, this is the homework we've done, and that's kind of the number that would help. But that's up for the board to discuss and decide. The other document you have there is some financial costs. And again, this is a small piece of paper with a lot of numbers on it. But the reason I'm bringing that up now is the two items that are on that sheet that talk about the athletic field or the auditorium. The cost is around $6 million. So you can follow that down to see the tax impact below on each home's value. That would be the same if you were to include that for that Bird Island building. And I'm going to put a little asterisk by that because it always is. In order to put money into the Bird Island building to turn around and sell it, and Mike can chime in if and when he feels like he needs to. The bonding ability to do that is a little different because you're putting money into a facility that you no longer then own. So tax-wise, there's a little difference with the bonding. So there's going to be tax implications with that. You can still do it. It just changes things a little bit. So the interest rate of that portion of money is a little higher. So that has to add or factor into some of those decisions. So we can include an amount to demo the building and make the land bare. There's no difference there. But if we're going to invest in that building to then sell the building, now there's some, because if you think about it, we're buying a mortgage, and part of that mortgage is going to go to that building. And if you no longer own that building, your mortgage, you need to make that right. You can do it. It's just there's some complications about doing that. So, questions, thoughts, comments about that particular portion?
Mike is here if we want him to.
Yeah.
To chime in.
Yep.
Or if anyone has any questions.
Good evening, all. So I think the easiest way to think about this is if you get rid of if you're planning on getting rid of a parcel of land that currently has one of your buildings on it and you want to demolish it, we should probably think about selling that portion of debt as a taxable bond, because then whatever you get for proceeds, you don't have to pay that tax exempt piece off. you can keep on the same schedule. I think that's the easiest way to look at it right now. We'll frame this out more after your discussion, but just the easier part of the solution, or the easiest way to look at this, is if it doesn't continue to be used as a governmental entity, we can't issue the bonds to sell it as tax exempt.
Just that portion of money though, right, Mike?
Correct. That doesn't, we will bifurcate. So if you said, hey, let's do a $50 million issue and this is 600,000 of it, that means that the remainder would be sold tax exempt, absolutely. But it's a community, it may benefit your community immensely, and that would be the right way to do it.
Personally, I think I would like to support the project that they have going on and including money in the bond referendum for that. I think it'd be a huge asset for all of our communities.
I agree.
I definitely would like to see support toward that project as well. Unsure of the exact amount, and I know that's why we're having discussions tonight.
The further the amount goes up, the more discussion we'll have to have with MDE on why it's part of the project, right? So I don't know if you've followed, but you've got a district that's not too far from here, Red Rock, that had a referendum on Tuesday, and it passed by votes, 975 to 890 something, or somewhere in those numbers. But actually failed because their review and comment was unfavorable from the Department of Education. And in that case, in an unfavorable review and comment, you have to get 60%, a supermajority, in order to pass. Department of Education, well, I'm not super familiar with it, so I'm not going to get into a bunch of details because I don't know details, but the district obviously claims that they feel like what they had in the plan was appropriate and justifiable. The Department of Education said they didn't necessarily follow the financing of how this would actually, their plan would all work, and that's why they issued that unfavorable judgment. So that's a real, oh darn, when they actually passed the referendum but didn't pass the referendum. So again, I have a call with Dale and the gentleman at the Department of Education on Thursday just to go through some of these pieces. I'm pretty confident here in this situation, what we're doing and what we're going to present, but I want to get his kind of initial blessing and thoughts on it. That they did not have a operating levy, which they did pass also, I believe, on that. So here you guys have one established. So they're basing some of their plan potentially on that passing when they didn't know. And I could see how that could play into things where you're in a different situation. You're going from 2 buildings to 1. You've got an operating levy that passed. You're in a good financial standpoint. So there are some things that are different.
Right?
Yep.
I have a question. Actually, the question is for the other board members. I just want to make sure I understand what you were saying. This is, I think you said, that some portion of the referendum, which could be used to, let's say, restore the Bird Island campus, you're in favor of something like that? Is that I didn't get in one of the enclosures, so am I interpreting what you're saying correct? That you're open to the idea of discussing that particular aspect? That's a question.
That's what I was, that's what
Okay.
my answer
Are
was
you
toward.
hearing okay, John? Can someone speak louder? I mean, I'm just curious.
I think everybody here, John, that has spoke up right now is in favor of looking at that.
Yeah, I heard what they said.
Okay,
Okay,
I just wanted to make sure. I was gonna ask you, so,
Yes,
okay.
I've tried to tune it in my ear a little bit better too.
Okay, the only thing you're missing, you have the ICS scope outline. The only thing you're missing is the estimated pay 22 school portion of taxes. If Ryan emails you that, would
I can
that,
send it to him.
or Dale, someone emails you that, would that?
It's the same one that I sent last meeting, John, if you have
Okay.
access to that.
Yeah, okay.
I'll make sure we all have the same information, because that's helpful.
Yeah, my question again goes back to the other board members present. And that was, did I hear what I thought I heard? And they
Good
confirmed.
clarification, John. So Ryan, how specific to each line item would we need to be, we say an amount, I would suggest an amount.
Yeah,
Do I need to be specific on, here are the 3 or 4 items that we'd like to find money toward, or how?
Right,
how does that
that's
work?
the difficult part with this particular line item. We've done estimates, going back with the condition of that building and different options for the board to consider of putting into the building, right? Nobody has really, including the EDA, from what I can gather, hey, this amount really allows us to do this. Now, they have an estimate that gives it, again, I want to say it's around 6.3 million that they say gives the building to be whole. That still means there's some substantial work inside the building after that for them to take care of. That does not make the building usable. That makes the building feasible then to continue the development and use for particular entities within it. So for me, it's tough. I don't know how to give you an answer to that. To say 1 million does this, 2 million does this, 6 million does this. I'm sorry. I've thought about it, a lot, and I can't come up. If you're looking at me, and I know you do, to give us some guidance here, it's a hard one for me. This is, I know that from the only thing I can do is put on my consultant hat to the school district of Bold and to say anything outside of just giving that clear, clean property, the ability to then transfer hands. That's the simplest, that's the least cost, that does not tie community emotions into things. So that's where I don't know. I'm pretty confident $1 to $6 million, it's kind of indifferent to me because it's not going to get anybody a building they can use wholly. There's going to be another step somehow, some way. And I'm not saying that potentially they have people that will take that on and be fine with that. I don't know that, but yeah, it's a real hard one. And when you compare what people are, when you look at this, when you compare the auditorium aspect to being added to a new building, potential, athletic field to be added to a new building, how do you start weighing those out? And then when you add all of them together, say we want it all, let's do it all. Well, your $50 million building now becomes a $68 million referendum, which that's substantial. And that we're going to get some questions from MDE saying how can the communities of Bold support $68 million?
So from what I'm reading, like the big concern would be the HVAC and the roofing. Do you have an estimated cost on what the 2 of those would be, Ryan?
All of my estimates are well outside of the numbers there. And again, it's all based on a little bit of assumption because we're assuming that you can get a building to $6 million and then say, I'm done, you take it. And to get it there, the approval process, the construction process is going to be allowed without doing the end product. Again, I'm not saying it can't be done. The difficulty to say what we're going to do as a school district is put $6 million into a building and not have it completely finalized for occupancy to then turn over to somebody else. The door's wide open for stuff to go wrong there. Again, I don't want to say it's not possible because I'd love to be able to solution through that, but That's where I get scared of now we're really exposed with what potentially could happen. And so is potentially the other party. Because they could end up then with a building that they didn't want, because we have to do things because we have a finite amount of money. If we ask for $6 million, we get no more than $6 million to do that. So if that gets us not all the way there. So to answer your question, roofing's pretty easy. Yep, I think we have $445,000 for the 2 roofing sections that need to be replaced. Super simple. HVAC and things like that, it's so, the door is it's too wide to say what can happen there. We can go in and put little units in each room, similar to what's there, but to today's standards. I don't know if that would actually end up meeting the codes and things like that that are required when you get into energy codes and that. See, this is, I'm going to make this very technical. You start to mess with the building, and now you start to have to include all the different codes of today. So the walls don't have the insulation that are required of buildings of today. So we have to address that. Okay, is that going to come out of the $6 million? If it is, okay, great. Then we're going to put in a furnace into that particular space. Okay, great. But did we provide access to it? Did we provide handicap ability? You know, it just, that's why I was always really reluctant to say, you know, our deferred maintenance number of 17 million, that's where we were at. We didn't drop that to say, oh, okay, we could get by with, you know, less. It just, the transition from one entity to another without a complete building.
So I have a question. If, say we include whatever dollar amount in the bond referendum to put towards that building, do we then, and it passes, do we then do the work, get the work done, and then sell the building? Or do we get that money to them, sell them the building first, and then?
No, the process to me would go, you're getting the money, you would then be responsible for doing the work, and then you sell the building. So it's in that process, if all stars aligned and we took $6 million and we did the roof sections and we replaced the windows and we took out the existing mechanical system and just put in the bare bones system to have it heat and provide air, and you got that done for $6 million and then you sold the building for $1, yep, that process could happen. I'm just scared that we're going to submit a plan to the state to say, here's $6 million of work in this building. And what our goal is to not actually have an occupied building at the end of it. There's going to be work that has to follow. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And them just saying, okay. And again, stars align, maybe that's okay. You know, and I know you're probably thinking, okay, well, you said we could do this, put money into it. I think you can. It's just, I don't want anybody to look back at me at the end of putting $6 million into it and say we can't now do anything because we have to finish the building before we sell it, and we can't finish the building because we don't have any money. Now what are we doing?
Yeah,
I don't know, Robert, maybe you have similar thoughts or different thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much in alignment with everything that you said. It's that unknown part from, you know, above and beyond the 6 million.
I think, I think Jill was involved with one of the meetings of the committee. And they're all struggling with this same thing. You know, it's where, what do they need? And Ingham's have been involved, and several times they've come back to what is the purpose. And so I think we're gonna put some money into this project, then what is the purpose going to be? And you know, I think the district has usage of the gym is a unit that would be of interest to the school district and the community. So is that something we could look at? You know, preserving that in some extent, such as the roof, and then fixing the walls and such on that, but, and this is the same thing I think you've struggled for some time, since I've come, is you put $1 in and it takes 2 more to follow up with it. And it just escalates, and I think the committee is trying to really work at that. In what way can they get people involved as far as owning the building, renting, leasing parts of the building or whatever? I think they're working very hard trying to put a plan together with that, and they've got a lot of ideas, and I think they've shared some of that in the literature that they dropped off, and you've been able to look at that, and so you see what types of brainstorming they've been doing. And Barbara Marks and Richard have been working very closely with the group and giving them cost items of to do and what not to do. And the plan is what they kind of put together there, the different scenarios, and but they're just at the starting stage too. And so, but they're looking at it and saying, well, how can they make that property being something that's an asset to the community? And I think we all would want that, but it all involves dollars, and that's the issue they have. They have lots of ideas, but where's the money involved? And I work with some districts where the property's been sold, it's been up for sale, and it's been sold. And investors come in and has shown interest in it, and that's taken off. Is that a possibility? We don't know. So the clean cut would be to take and sell the building and see what's out there. If there's not the interest that we do not find an investor or anything like that, well, then we start looking at this more. So I think it's.
Mike would like to talk if you are done. Sorry.
No. Who's the head of this?
I'm
sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
Mike.
But I think you're discussing a lot of things that I think that committee has been toying with and been working with, and so it's good to hear, that. So go ahead.
So I'm going to throw one to think about, and I don't know how NDE would react to this, but it might be enough to get the wheels moving a little further along. And that would be, what if we raised the building in Bird Island and brought it up to be utilized for the next tenant on that land, and set aside a dollar amount that in a taxable bond that would be used by the EDA to enhance that property, to give it something, to give it a boost in Bird Island. So let's, for sake of argument, said that you would put in $600,000 for demolition, and you would lay $1 million on the line through a voter question or some type of dollar amount. But I used $1 million because we can factor that pretty easily with what the cost would be. Would redoing that site and setting it up for a future tenant, would that get you guys, would that set up that Bird Island property very nice as a portion of the school district? And yet the entire school district community would be putting forth the payment of that enhancement.
So basically what you're saying is clean slot of land, but $1 million or whatever amount sitting in the bank ready to be used.
Yeah, so you're essentially, the school is not responsible for economic development, but the taxpayers are allowed to vote on whether the school could economically develop this property with their assistance.
Who would develop it, Mike?
You would sell the land for $1, and you would transfer the taxable bond issue over to the EDA, the proceeds. It's an idea to explore. It's something to throw out there, but you're then as a board taken off the hook of trying to figure out what this property is going to be. It's just going to have such a head start over any other property based on a positive vote.
Okay,
So you would demolish everything except for the gym.
Well, I think what Mike's proposing is you demolish
You
everything.
demolish everything.
Yeah. See, that's where the confusing part lies, when we don't do something 100%.
Mhm.
So yeah, can we do I feel much more comfortable saying we can do $6 million, because at the end of it, we're going to have this. We're gonna have a gym with a wing that is fully done and everything else is torn down. And now we have a building that actually is an asset that can be sold and valued and understood. As opposed to, well, we kind of did this over here to make it a little bit better, and this we tore down some of it and put in a new heater, but it's not really done. That's where it gets sticky of unfinished versus finished. And so here he's saying, demo the building, put in the bank a taxable bond that they then do the work, so the school doesn't do the work.
So do we have to do the demo? I mean, I like what he's saying, but I'm just wondering if we can just say, here we go, we're selling it for whatever, X amount of dollar, whatever it might be. We're going out for a bond. I don't want a separate question. I just don't think that's a good idea. I'd like to see it all part of it. We're going out for a bond. We're gonna give the EDA X amount and be done.
I would assume that would be okay. Like,
We would vet that with MDE, but we would specifically put that in the ballot question and spell it out exactly.
So basically, let's say it's $1 million. Included in the referendum, question 1 is $1 million to be handed to the EDA along with the building and site for $1. They get the building, they get the $1 million, keep what you want, demo what you want, and they get $1 million to start their development. That way you're not on the hook then for getting it halfway or close to where they're just taking it.
Under that scenario, Ryan, who would do the demo again?
That would be the EDA.
The EDA is, okay, EDA responsibility, okay?
And if they chose not to,
Cleaner that way.
I think so too. I just don't like it being like, so you're saying it still would be a separate question.
it could be either way.
Yeah, my opinion is I don't want it to be a separate question.
To me, the likelihood of a second question grows with the amount,
Yeah,
right? 1
Yeah.
million, 2 million, probably not a big deal. You get to 3, 4, 5. Now you're probably gonna, the support from Bird Island, does that outweigh then the support from everybody else?
Right.
You know,
I would say it'd be cleaner to include it in the dollar instead of a second question. Is that what
I
you're
would
saying?
definitely like to see it
Yeah.
included.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want it
I
as a
think-
second question.
The board here should make that determination.
I agree with that. What do you think, John?
Yes, that's fine.
You're
Include it all as one.
Okay,
Okay,
Am I correct in that interpretation?
yes.
yep.
Yeah, you are.
I like what Mike is saying here because it kind of gets the board, the school district away from being a developer.
Yeah.
Which we're not into that business. We're in the business of educating and providing facilities for learning. And so it kind of removes, I think, the district from that role and gives it to the EDA. And that's their role is to, in the development of it. And so I like that idea.
We talked about an amount with that idea of rolling it into, and the word $1 million has been used. That seems to be a distance from what the EDA had in their notice. So, I mean, we can go along with that idea. Say, well, we'll include here $1 million for you guys to do it. that amount, I'm just gonna, from what I've heard before, or what has been presented, that amount is small compared to what the 3 million or the 6 million or the 17 million for a completely new school. I think that's not really a very realistic figure. If you're looking at doing what we think we're going to be doing, I'm going to make an assumption that's giving some assistance to the EA, the Bird Island EDA. I just think that amount, and though we're not talking amounts to put in yet, but my thought is that that's a pretty small amount, but that's maybe it's for a later decision.
John, did you hear Ryan that he said that if we get in higher than, like, if you do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 million,
Yep,
then
yep.
it should be closed as a second question, so.
Has to be closed. Why, did you say it has to be a second question then, Ryan?
Yeah.
I didn't say it has to be, you start to, the reason you include it is because you want to show support for Bird Island.
Okay.
If the further that dollar amount goes up, now you're probably going to get negative support from everybody else. So
Makes sense.
that's,
I do agree with John though, what he's saying, that I think personally, I'm not saying the whole 6 million, but he's right, it's a pretty big gap, and maybe we could go higher than 1 million. I think Mike threw that number out for round numbers.
right.
I think that's what we need to decide is what is the right number? And I agree.
Right. I was
it's-
thinking that, I was thinking that it was 600,000 was sticking for the demolition
Right.
and $1 million incentive for economic development. So
600.
that's what the $1 million was in no way, shape or form meant to replace the $6-7 million that's necessary just to take care of the HVAC system.
Right. Mhm.
It was to just look at this purely as, my goodness, I've got a plot of land and I've got $1 million helper. What can I attract? It truly an economic development idea, the way it should work. And yet you as a school are being asked to be the developer and to complement and contemplate that site. Whereas this, the hope would be that by turning it over, some tax-paying entity would come in to develop that off Highway 212.
But they're still going to be faced with the fixing the building so it doesn't leak anymore. Those maintenance things, aren't they?
Well, under that scenario, under my scenario for economic development, you could rebuild it in a gym, but or rebuild it however you want. But in this case, it would be raised and you'd have $1 million of seed money there to attract a different business. Whereas you guys are saying, okay, it could be used, keep the gym. It could be used for some public use, different rooms, what have you. That's a whole different scenario. I just was trying to say, hey, if you walk back to the EDA and said, how about this idea? Would they say, oh, that sounds good. Can we do 1.5 or 2 million? That sounds even better. Okay, let's agree with that versus spending 6 million. We can make this work, and everybody walks away with a perfect plan.
Well, at this point, maybe we're premature with determining an amount. Concept is there, as I understand it, the concept is there to see if we can do something proactive to support, I'll just say the Bird Island community or that eastern end of the districts for support for the whole Bowl district. So maybe we're being premature with the amount. I guess sometimes you start throwing a dollar amount out, and that becomes the nail in the wall that you always hang on to.
But I think we have to,
Yeah,
We will, yes, we will.
well, but the review and this has to be part of the review and comment, correct?
Yes.
yes.
And that is due on Friday,
Right.
correct? So I'm
There's,
not sure what we're gonna come up with.
I don't think MD is listening, but we could include a dollar amount And I could amend that dollar amount
Okay.
between
That
now and
was,
November 23rd.
that was my question.
Did something.
Okay.
Luckily, I don't think there's a lot of referendums being planned for February, so the MDE, as far as that process goes, they have a lighter load than typical, so instead of reviewing 50, 60, 70 of these, they've been reviewing 6, so it helps.
Well, I think what you're getting down to here is, yeah, I think there needs to be some figures put on the table for discussion, and I think that's what we're doing. I'm hearing that a million isn't a whole lot against that.
So
They just one thing about the committee was that in talking with the committee, they threw these figures out, not that they expected that. Of course, they would accept any amount, but it's a starting point for them. And then that's what they shared, was that it's a discussion point for us to start with. And then I think you need to come back and saying, this is realistic, this is not. And I think what you've got to really look at is what figure can you put in that bond that the district will support as a whole? Because it'll take the entire district to support. And what's our goal as Bold Schools? Our goal is to put that plan together and have a facility out there on 212 by the hospital. That's our goal. And so what's it going to take to get there? It's going to take the communities to come together. And I think that's what we're debating is now there's a plan here. They've got a committee that's very energetic and got lots of ideas. But you can have all that, but it takes dollars to put it in play. And that's where they're at right now. They're looking at grants. They've got some grant people very involved, and I think they're going to find some money out there. And that's good. And so, but they're working at that. And so that's part of their EDA. And that's their development. But so I think for us, I think we should try and come to a realistic number that we feel comfortable going to our constituents of the district and get their support for it. You know, if you go up to the 6,000, I know that's good. So, and they do too. It's trying to find some common ground here. And so I'm hoping that we can. So Ryan, you're gonna.
yeah, I'm just looking, Mike, I'm looking at your cost sheet here. I don't know, it must be looking at something's $6 million is approximately $2 and some change a month.
The $100,000 market value.
Yes.
On
On a
$100,000.
$100,000 home, yep.
And that, so.
200,000 is gonna be just it's gonna be $5.
Yep.
So 100,000 is $2 a month, $5 a month on a $200,000 home.
That doesn't exactly translate to every $6 million is not exactly the same. As you get further out, it goes up. So if we're at $100 million from 94 to 100 million is more than $2 a month. But so it's going to be very close to that. It'll be pennies, but something to consider, because obviously what you're going to get or what you're going to hear is $2 a month. No brainer, you can do 6 million. It's all the other things. So if we want to wrap our head around that and kind of put it off and then look at the other items that we need to look at and then come back to that and see, okay, how does it now? I mean, that's one way to do it, but it's.
That'd be a good idea.
I think, yeah, I like that idea. Yeah.
Let's do that.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to help Sandy get connected here, and
Okay.
so I missed the whole discussion.
You're okay.
So the next two items, similar in context, and these two are, I don't know, maybe there's not a lot of debate with them, but it's auditorium and athletic field, and both of them are around $6 million price tag. Whether they're to be included at all, whether to be included only in the single question, whether to be included as a second question. That's the discussion. From what I understand, the auditorium has been a pretty strong, it needs to be part of it. The survey tested well with that theory as well. So it makes sense. I get that. It just jumps our $50 million building up to 56, and then we're going to put 6 into Rhode Island. It jumps it up to 62, and then that football field, that other concept still sits out there. Many times we've heard, come at us once, don't come at us for referendums do what you need to do once, do it right, be done with it. So that if you put the athletic field in as a second question or a third question might help, eliminate some of that or alleviate some of that thought.
I do like, as much as I want everything in one package, not we're talking supporting some economic development ideas of Rhode Island. I feel definitely option 2 stands out in my mind with a second question of the athletic and activities field. Again, I would love to see everything at once, but I think that would be a high percentage of selling that to the general public. The auditorium, I think, is a very high need. It eliminates having to battle with using a gym space, for the fine arts programs that we've had to do for several years. Yeah, and I definitely know the survey came back with a decent percentage for the need, and not only for our district, but our entire community. So I do support option 2 with the second question, adding athletic and activities field. That way it's there and we can always go back to it if needed.
I agree with you, Melissa. I definitely think the auditorium it seems to be a higher priority. And the nice thing about having the second question for the athletic is then, then we know where we're at with that. But I think the auditorium needs to be included.
John, what do you think?
Okay, first of all, we're doing right now, if I understand right, we're looking at option 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going down that list and talking about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. On option 2, it says keep and use current football field. Is there just what happened to the track? Was that
One complex, John.
Keeping your one in Olivia that you have.
okay? I just want to make sure.
Yep.
That's also includes track.
And I do have in that option that we would perform maintenance on those 2 items after current Olivia site. So there is monies there. It's the $1 million for maintenance of that field and track.
Again, if I'm looking, I guess at the options, I lean towards option 1 with no auditorium. Keep the football field, track as is, but no auditorium for that particular option.
I agree. I like to see the number 2. I think, as a kid, I remember being in community plays. I'd love to see that come back. But I think auditorium's huge, and it does. I think it'd be a really good thing. So I would like to see number 2 with a separate question for the football field or athletic.
For the football field or for the auditorium? Second question.
I would like to see the auditorium as a yes, but then a second question for the football or athletic field with a new school.
So you're talking option 2 with the second question for the athletic.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the point of clarity, the second question would be what now?
The second question listed there as the K-12 building plus and with the auditorium, leaving the athletic complex as it is.
Okay.
And option 1 is that same, only without the auditorium.
Okay.
Right?
Well, I just want to, when we're talking millions of dollars, I just want to make sure we know where I need to know where we're going.
there'd be question 1.
Yep.
with option 2 and question 2 with the athletic activities field and the $6 million figure. That's what I was referring to. Is that correct?
Two separate questions.
Correct.
So question 1 would add auditorium and school
Yes.
together.
That's what I was stating. So.
Okay. All right, and we'll do that.
I think from my looking at the communities and the district, the focus that you've had on the fine arts with the plays, the musicals, your music, your choirs and bands performing, if you're gonna build a $50,000 facility, it's pretty sad not to include a gathering place for your communities. And I've been to the musicals the last 2 years and they're outstanding, but to make them perform in a gymnasium today is rather foolish.
Yeah.
So I think when you look at the dollars, I think that's something that the communities would really have a buy-in. And most of the time, most communities that I know of that have had facility referendums, they've used the auditorium to sell to a lot of their constituents. So I would definitely, that's my bias, but that auditorium is key to a new facility, I would think. The athletic complex, you could always add that. And because that's not part of the building, so per se. The auditorium is. So I would say you'd want to do that. The athletic complex, you could wait, but I think what I'm also hearing is to have it as a second question. Then you're giving the opportunity for your communities to either approve it or disapprove that part of it. It's easier to do it all at once if you can do that. If your people will support that. So the other thing has been brought to my attention is having a dome. So if you want to start thinking outside the box. Ryan said they aren't that expensive.
I think that was a perfect discussion when you're talking with the hospital at a wellness center.
But I just throw that out.
I think at that point, we're starting to talk outside the billfold.
You think so?
And just to let you know, in relative terms, a dome is actually not too expensive with the things we're talking about. So
That's what I'm saying. And you got to remember, where do we live? The climate we have, and they could be golfing year round.
I don't know if we can even know that. That's not on our action list here tonight. So we don't have Jill, Sandy, or Jeff weighing in yet.
Jill's trying to get Sandy. Sandy, we are talking about, every time I put her down here, it hangs up on her. So trying to get, she can't, for some reason, she can't
Okay.
connect over audio.
How are we doing?
So I'm working on.
You want to look at any facilities at this point?
Yeah, maybe that'll
Call her.
be a good break in some of these things.
Maybe then be thinking about your,
So, because the next thing we're going to talk about is furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So when you look at some of these pictures, you can see what furniture, fixtures, and equipment do to space. So I don't know, do we have control Zoom, or do each?
do you want to, Robert, you want to?
Yeah, are you gonna put it up and share the screen?
I'm not even on Zoom,
Okay.
so.
We need Jill's
You
help.
can.
What's going on? I'm sorry. I'm trying to get our board members on there.
We're trying to get,
All right.
Robert wants to show his pictures.
Yeah, he should be able to.
You're in control.
I'll try to.
Really, obviously, that's done, but,
We're gonna be able to hear
Oh, I
you very
gotta
well. I
see.
don't know how well you'll do it.
There you go.
Everybody else.
Okay,
hear you good.
That's because I'm a bit away from you.
Joe, you might, if you talk a little louder, I think so.
Okay, Sandy, can you hear me?
You wanna come over here and join?
Yes.
I can hear you now. Okay, good.
Okay, good.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
I should do. You know, it'd probably be easier because I'm on my cell phone. If I call that phone number at the school there from my work phone here, it might be easier because I got a weird speaker on my phone here. at work.
Okay, perfect. Jim is gonna facilitate that for you.
Here, so what number can I call you on there?
What's the extension for the?
Or call me at
I can't pay attention to
523-5965. You call me. 523-5965.
Got it.
Got it?
Got it. 523-5965.
We've
So-
got Robert here tonight with us with Wold and and we sent this out in, for you to have, but I think it's important to take a look at this and to see, what different options there are. And just gives you some good pictures of things that you can expect. So, you want to go ahead, Robert?
Yeah, I'll get started. I'd like to just preface this with this, we don't come with the cookie cutter solution already for the building. I mean, it's driven by the district. These are just some good examples. We've had a lot of recent experience with not only just K-12 buildings, but also early childhood through 8 buildings, and then just some elementary schools, middle school and high schools to show some CTE things as well. So just a lot of photos and some floor plans, sort of just, build some excitement here as we move forward and look at some of the possibilities. So there's a lot of photos here. I'll probably just go through them pretty quickly, and then if we want to stop and talk about anything in particular, we can do that. Does that work for everybody here?
Yes, thank you.
So the 3 things that we kind of hit, we made this the other week just in case we had time to get to it, but some trends in current design that are significantly different than the past, just more personalized learning. Obviously, the evolution of media centers. I don't think there's a space in a school that has changed more than the media center itself. A lot more learner-centric environments, and then obviously career tech ed. So we kind of broke that all up, and in the end, we threw some athletic things in here just because we knew that had been added to the possible topics. And then as Dale and Ryan had mentioned, furniture and FF&E kind of play a role into this as well. So we kind of just showing how we're creating flexible spaces and then using the furniture and the tech integration and multiple learning styles to sort of adapt and move forward.
This is something you can take a look at. It's something that we're not used to in our schools, and I think you see this a lot in flexible learning areas and school districts all over now. And it's really conducive to positive results of learning. But when I first saw something like that, I thought, oh, now this is the dream world. But that's not true. It's in the building. And we created a commons area like that, and it was surprising how the kids went there and did their independent studies. And we find that down here, I think with Jim, with his furniture down here, I'll come into the media center and the students are studying it. It's conducive to learning, and so. But I just share that because this isn't uncommon today.
And it allows the flexibility to have the individual privacy, working on their own thing, small groups, medium-sized groups in their own room, or just pull them all together and do one large presentation. As we know with how frequently technology changes, I mean, it's just the same with curriculum and what students are doing. So it's an important part of our design is to plan for the future and allow that flexibility. So there's 70 some slides here. Like I said, I'll go through them fairly quickly if you want to stop or you want me to go back.
Only 10 minutes per slide.
So here, changing the 4th wall is, again, it's creating, these are breakout spaces outside of the general classrooms. A lot of glazing, a lot of supervision options, but it just allows those visual connections. The students are kind of on their own, working on their own. Again, I think most of these have the location on there in the bottom left, so you can get a feel for where they're at. But again, breakout spaces. the elementary schools in Wayzata here. So this kind of focuses on personalized learning, what's important, what you're, teaching and learning initiatives are, and all the variety of ways we can help meet that to kind of empower the kids and the students.
What all this means is it's very understood now, and maybe not so much even in the recent past, people learn differently, right? So it's providing all those different areas for how kids learn. It's not saying you're going to sit in this row, face forward, and learn for 8 hours a day. That's, some people don't function that way. Some function very highly, some don't. So it's a lot. It's trying to figure out how the best environment works for that student.
Exactly. Here's a good example of that. The Spring Lake Park Elementary School just kind of shows, this is a good example of the difference between a traditional double-loaded corridor where you just got classrooms on each side of the hallway and then this. And to Ryan's point, you've got the small, medium, and individual group areas where maybe the higher learners or the ones that are ahead can kind of go on their own, and the teachers can focus on a smaller portion of the group. But then we also have the STEM areas where they can pull out and do actual experiments and build things, whatever's needed in that particular wing of the building. Here's a pod of elementary classes, and it kind of shows the operable walls in between the classrooms and the breakout space. Here's another example of a learning studio where you have labs and different breakout spaces, and you have some areas where half of the room is lecture, half of it is lab. It can be opened up and operated as 2 separate rooms or 1 combined room. Again, a lot of flexibility built into this. And this example was of a renovation. So you can see the, on image north end or on the top is the renovation, and in the bottom, what the traditional labs look like. It's kind of just a good comparison to show how we're handling a lot of different needs. Evolutions of the media center. One of the big things here, and it's kind of highlighted with this photo here in Wayzata, is a secure point. So kind of having an area where you can still lock it off after hours, but there's still a spot where people can go and interact and use certain parts of the media center. So where you've made a hybrid staffs are able to be secured off, but there's still an area for the community to use it. A lot of these in middle school and high school are set up more to be like a Starbucks, where you have your areas where you can plug in and work on your computer, have a personalized area, but then also maybe get some food, get some drinks, but still the flexibility to the smaller areas if you do want the privacy. So again, these are 2 media center shots here in Mankato. Edina. This one here was in Monticello. And again, trying to maximize space. You don't necessarily need a tremendous amount of areas taken up just by the stacks of the books. So depending on the needs, that can actually go back into high density storage, especially in maybe a media center or middle school or high school. Elementary school, I think the students still have to walk around and see the books and touch them, feel them, kind of look at them. But in a situation where you typically have students just typing in the book that they want and they go grab it, we've moved a lot of those areas into high density storage. So you literally process it, then grab the book for you and you go get it. And all that stacked square footage then is used in some of these images here for media classrooms, open resource areas, TV studios, etc. Another example of a classroom pod or wing where you got the classrooms on the outside, breakout space, and conference rooms in the middle. And again, kind of highlight the benefits of the furniture, flexibility. This is a middle school. This was outside of some STEM space where they would actually, if this furniture was like this for presentations, then they would show what they were working on here in the carpet in the center area, which was very beneficial, not taking up space in the classroom itself. Here's another example of that, some of the robotics. Shakopee High School, so this is one of the more advanced CTE projects that we've worked on. They had academies. So they actually had a hospital academy, a culinary academy, a banking, like business academy, TV studio, and then an IT one. So we actually built, ER and OR rooms within classrooms to have the local hospital come over and teach at. These innovation hubs kind of tied into all of them. You can see here in the bottom center there, I mean, it's basically a culinary, a commercial kitchen that we built with TVs instead of the old fashioned, mirrors to watch what you're doing. And then we would have local restaurants, local communities and business members coming in, doing presentations, talking about their business, taking it to the next level from the traditional fax room, if you will. But we've also done examples where we've had a traditional fax room and a higher level culinary part, so we can still kind of catch all the spectrum of what you might need. Industrial tech rooms here. So there's an example of one of the health science academies in Shakopee, where we have the separate rooms and then beds, and you can see where the actual lecture part would take place. I think the guy on the left there, his name is Sam. And you'll see here, the drop down reels and a lot of infrastructure already built in to help future needs.
Yeah, again, a lot of these things you'll see, think of the word flexibility. That program may go at some point, but that room can now adapt to all sorts of different uses. What's the next curriculum? What's the next industry that we don't even know is going to be developed and we need to prepare people for? So that's the other side of it, is being flexible.
And you'll still see rooms with the built-in, casework around the perimeter or some peninsulas, but like here we have the, these work tables here on casters, we can move them around. So to Ryan's point, kind of ultimate flexibility from that standpoint. Here's another example of a media center, secure sort of lock-off area to the right where you can, I don't know if you can see my mouse there, but these would be like where the coiling shutters would come down, but you could still access a certain amount of the library needs here from somebody that be working, but then you can use this whole area here during the evenings or during the weekend. And then obviously during the school day, that's where the students would go. Some additional industrial tech shop. So this is an example of a lecture side and lab side. So over here on the robotics side, they would build everything and then lecture would happen here, and that glass partition could open up just whenever it was needed. One of the things they really liked about these two here were that the display cases they normally see in the corridor, we just had glass on both sides. So sort of learning on display and the products and the things that they were making on display at the same time. But then that also aids in passive supervision, et cetera.
Day lighting is huge. You can tell in a lot of these pictures, getting natural light in this type of.
So we've got some, so these are just some actual K-12 examples. We have this Ross said one later, so I'll skip that. But ideally it was actually in Colorado, but that's a K-12 along with South Canangos. And so we have some plans here. This one was, Ross is a little bit older, but I think still hit on some good things as far as grade separation, safety and security, community access points and, the lockdown points. Probably a little bit more traditional with the, grades 1, 2, 3, and 4 there. As you can see, it's a little bit of a double loaded corridor there, but still some resource areas. Media center, the hub and access from a lot of different areas. So again, just some stuff, there's a lot of concerns with having, that many grades together. And so that's not atypical for us to discuss and work through. We've got a lot of different examples to kind of talk about what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, safety, security, everything, right? And at some point we can go on building tours as well, just with COVID and, this kind of just being rocking and rolling right here. We did this digital tour, I think, to kind of help supplant some of their information without actually getting out into the building. So here's Patrick, I think, is on the call here too, but Patrick and I worked on Prairie View. This is the original building is in E8. We've already done an addition onto this, and one of the things we hit on when it comes to flexibility is actively planning where those additional locations can be. and, kind of having an appropriate amount of infrastructure already right-sized to handle that in the future. Not spending bad money after good, but, doing the planning and everything that's needed now to help these and make everything as cheap and I guess as feasible as possible moving forward. So this was an EA. So you deal with a lot of the same things as you would in a K-12 as far as grade separation. This also had early childhood. So this might be, if we want to distribute this to everybody, could take a look through it all and kind of come up with questions or thoughts too, if you want to circle back and hit on any of those. Here's another example of this is that EA media center area. So this is the Starbucks. This area right here is open all the time. Every evening and every weekend, anytime I've ever been there, this has been in use. And then the lockdown point for the staffs, it's back behind here. But during the school day, they open this all up. Here's some more examples, again, of the Prairie View. Chisago Lakes Community Center, this just had some activity spaces that were added to the school. Mora Fieldhouse Community Center. I think this was one of the things we talked about when we were meeting with the hospital still, or no similar. Hermantown. That's it. So, this is probably a fraction of what we could show, but we thought it'd be something that would be nice to kind of get up there to bubble, obviously, create some more excitement, show some possibilities. But we can address any maybe quite particular questions you guys might have about something you've seen in here, or if you want more examples or more references or anything like that, we'd be happy. ICS and we'll be happy to provide those.
We've heard quite a few times already. What's it look like? Show me the plan. Show me the building. It'll look something like that. That's the best we can do right now because there is no building yet. There's no design. There's no that comes from the whole process after. And it's purposeful because there's more than just a board or an administration that is involved in that. It's everybody. So there needs to be a lot of input gathered in order to create spaces like that.
Yeah, we'll have a tremendous amount of meetings. As needed, but that's the process that we like. We want the information from the people that are going to live it and breathe it. This is your guys' building. And so we don't want to provide you the solution. We want the criteria from you, and then we'll put that into what works best for the community of the Kansas district. You'll have a lot of things that are similar, but it's important that this is bold building.
And I think what I see is, the openness, all the options you've got. Like Ryan said when we started, we were about we had a classroom with rows of chairs, and there we sat down and we did our thing, and that time has changed. That's not the road we're in today. And so I think that's what I wanted Robert to show is that Ryan, that the options here, it's unbelievable. And you say, well, you can't afford that. You don't know, and I think we've got to open up our eyes. We've got to see what's out there today. And the majority of the setting isn't like this anymore. It's in pods, it's in small groups, and kids are learning different today. Their minds are wired different than when we're in school. So that's what I wanted to show is that there's all kinds of opportunities to do your thing and stuff. And again, I'm very proud of Bold. I think you've got some super students and staff here that would really excel given the opportunity to be in something like this. So this is down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what we've got included at this point is $1 million for what we call FF&E. And that's furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So that's tables and chairs, TVs and things like that. Also, if you think about like fitness centers and weight equipment or basketballs or, you know, all those other items that the machinery and woods or metals. We'd obviously try to use as whatever is feasible out of here to bring it. If it is feasible, if it is worth it, any of the school. But that's not an extravagant amount. It might sound like, holy cow, $1 million. That's the way I have it broken down here is $500,000 for furniture, $500,000 for fixtures, and $300,000 for equipment. So when you start to compartmentalize it like that, then all of a sudden it's not so much, right? $5 a square foot, not even furniture. So that's the reason I brought it up is just because it's a number that people will focus on. Like, holy cow, are you going to outfit the building? Is the building going to be ready for us to use? Yes. Okay, well, how much is that? That's why I've outlined it. That can be attacked to say, oh, you don't need to spend that much. Take that out. But so I just wanted to be clear on that and show what's included. Any questions about FF&E? Any thoughts?
And those figures, they're all based on the square footage and the enrollment that we have. And I mean, how do you come up with those figures?
It's mostly based on the size of building, right? Okay. So 150,000 square foot building. Here we go. You know, I can put $1 million into furniture alone, and you would spend it like that. So what? Any of this, we'll have to be responsible. We'll set priorities. We'll go through shopping lists and shopping lists and shopping lists and meet with people, understand, you know, what's the best of all potential. But yeah, I mean, that's a pretty standard amount. And on top of that, we have $750,000 allocated for technology. So that goes to security systems, camera systems, obviously, you know, Wi-Fi and you know, wireless access points and all those good things that go into buildings. We can and will buy computers and things like that with it. Try not to do that as much as possible because that's such a commodity that it's tough to spend, you know, $1,000 on a computer that you're going to get rid of and cycle in 2 years, but you're paying on it for 25. So try to be smart with that, but something you have to do what you have to do to get what you need. So there will be some of that, but we try to keep it to things that are going to be within the building and used in the building for a long time. I have contingency written on there. I do have two different contingency amounts, but they're combined into one line. So right, it's on the bottom of that sheet, right above project cost total. So in essence, I'm carrying 5% construction contingency, which is what you use during construction for any sort of change. That could be a change that you didn't plan on, or a change that you want to implement within it, which is a good thing. 5% pretty industry standard. We hold that harmless until we actually start building. So it's not something where we are in the middle of design and we're like, oh, well, you know, it'd be great to add that basketball court. Let's just take some contingency money and throw it in there. Now we're going to hurt ourselves in the back end. But because of that, I do have a 5% design contingency. Now that you can look at me and say, do we really need that? Can we take that out? I would just question you on it, but I would be okay with that. Like, well, we're good. Well, when say, no, we keep that. You know, there's the component of the wellness center and how that would tie in, and do we want to allow that to be flexible and massaged for a time being? That adds to it. But 5% is 5%. That's a bigger number, right? So it's a couple $1 million. So do we, that could be in a way we offset some of the money for dialogue. we could say, you know what, let's drop that design contingency to 2%. And that way we offset the other 3% is part of what helps provide the $1 million or whatever for the EDA. Because we already have it included in the numbers here, we're just kind of shifting where it goes. That way it's not adding money to the total. And again, I know you're probably gonna look at me and say, what should we do? And, you know, and that would make sense to me. I could see, okay, let's drop that design contingency maybe to 3% instead of 2%, but then take that leftover money, whatever what would have been there, and that helps cover some of that EDA cost. So that's basically all the numbers that we have to talk about. So now we can get back into that Rhode Island discussion and see.
Most bonds that you work with do have that contingency in there built in.
Been doing the design contingency more and more. So I would say my first, I don't know, 10 years, 12 years, never did.
Okay.
I was more on the, I'm gonna bang on those architects and they're not, you know, but it becomes now there's so much ability to not exactly know what's going into a building that it's helpful to have. It's good. And when it's a new site, undeveloped over there, we don't really know how it's all gonna flow and function and work. It helps. If it's building on this site where we know things are, then I might be able to reduce. I'm comfortable saying, you know what, 3%, let's just keep it at 3% and work with that.
I do like that idea of just dropping it down, still having it, but just dropping it down to leave some extra dollars
Right.
for what we talked about with the design building.
I can agree with that.
I like to look at it like it's sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, especially if there's new initiatives where you're teaching in a different way than you're used to. You'll get into planning and be like, oh, maybe we need this. If you have a smaller design contingency, then it's just still always a matter of prioritizing. I mean, you still got to do something, and you're still not. But that's kind of what the maybe an easy way to look at it is. There might be things that come up that you guys hadn't thought about that you want to do to try to tackle. Maybe that something else falls off the list and that gets supplanted, or maybe there's more money to add that component. But I think from us, it's just all prioritization of district and ICS. Here's what we need to fit into the dollars.
And then does the construction contingency and the design contingency, is it kind of a one line, like could it kind of be if we get into the building and we think we need a little more in design and a little less than construction contingency, can that money be used in either spot, or is it 5% and whatever we decide 3% or whatever for design?
There's no rule. It's just as the time moves forward, that can go. You could switch. We would like to set it up where we're going to start with 5% in construction, 3% in design.
Right.
As design gets further and further along,
Construction's probably close to gone.
we understand where the design is, so the design contingency can start to go away. And the construction, you know.
Yeah.
So yes, you can flip flop it like that, but keeping that 5% for construction is one of my just.
Okay.
And like I said, that 5% isn't for mistakes or unknown. It covers that, but the majority of that 5%, probably 4%, will be actually what we call owner driven, meaning we're in it. We actually want to do this now. Let's do this over here, and we're directed to do that because we realize now something we need to hold. So the construction contingency isn't necessarily just for things that do with actual building.
So we come back to the one question we need to try and answer. Is an amount that Ryan can work with. I think we all have the right intent, want, and so we got to come up with a figure that is realistic.
So if 3 million starts to kind of ask questions, I mean, Andy starts to really ask questions with what 2.5 million.
How about 4?
Then they start to ask questions.
Well, possibility, but we look at community support is also an issue, I think, that we need to keep in mind. I know as a Lions member, anytime the school district has come to the committee and asked for money, there's never been a hesitation. It's just been yes. That's the kind of support I think we're going to be needing, not only now, but as we travel down this road with all the questions of declining enrollment and consolidation of schools and all of that. We need community support. And I think that the dollars spent in that area will be well rewarded later on.
I guess I'm concerned for the higher we go. I've already seen several people that have posted that they already want to vote no because it's gonna break the bank with, you know, elderly people in the community and so forth, so on and so forth. I don't know what the magic number is. I think, I don't know, 4 might be too high because then if you add on that, well, that's more tax dollars. So the bottom line is even, in my opinion, is even if you're supporting this, but you're raising the taxes here, you're gonna have people that are scared off. Because, I mean, I look at it, like, honestly, I asked somebody, what do you pay for your cell phone a month? Your cell phone bill in a month. Honestly, what annually my taxes will go up for a new school is less than what I pay monthly for my cell phone bill. So.
Well, that comes down to education, right? I mean, it comes down to education.
I know, but I just, Jill.
No, I hear
I
what you're
have a
saying.
question. So I think, I don't know if you said it or Mike said it, that you find that referendums have a better chance of passing if we're looking at that $100,000 average, if it's $20 less, $20 per month or less.
Yeah.
So maybe we could kind of backtrack from that and say, this is what it is with the auditorium. And maybe not consider the football field or the athletic for now, and then see what's left to make that in that range.
So so if you look at that sheet.
This one.
the
So I can't
colorful
want
one,
to
I'm trying to do a magnifier on this.
Then you have on the purple column,
that I can see.
it's a total of about 58.3 million, right?
Mhm.
And you can see the tax impact, and I don't care what's in it. Don't worry about the heading or whatever. That's 58.3 million. So if we're spending 58.3 million, doesn't matter what it's on,
Okay.
it's going to be $19.66.
Okay.
Okay. So if that's the directive, and which is very normal, we go through this process and we come to and the board says, we're not spending more than $19.66. Okay, then we go back and reverse engineer the plan to say, okay, here's all the most we can get out of each category. Now, obviously that doesn't mean we're going to throw in the athletic field and throw in the auditorium and throw in the Bird Island part and then shrink the building to, that doesn't work, right? We'll start
No,
with
because
the
the main
building.
goal was to build it.
Right, right.
That's the main goal of all of this.
But if that's the context, then, so right now, I've been real timing some of our conversation here in the spreadsheet. So I've modified the option 2 to include another 1.185 million for Bird Island. You're using the existing football field and track, but providing some maintenance to it. The new building with the auditorium. All of the furniture, fixtures, equipment we got. Driving the design contingency to 7, or the both contingency to 7% for. That's at 57.9. So we're underneath 58.3. So we're underneath that $19.66. So if our goal is $20 a month, I think we can we can get there. There's more room in there to move. If we're trying to think is $57.9 million too much, and we need to get under 55 million. That's another, I mean, that's where all of a sudden all the work we do with all these numbers and getting so finite, it becomes a feeling like it can't be over 55 million.
Right.
Okay, then, but from this standpoint, everything that we talked about
And I'm
seems to
sorry,
fit under.
in what you just said, just so I didn't hear, what amount did you have for the Brooklyn building? And what you just said with dropping it to 7% for the contingency.
I have,
Including that
actually,
in-
yeah, I have a total of 1.778 million, the Bird Island building. So
And that
that's
still would be underneath this, what we have here in the purple column, which is.
right. The total of that,
So making that around 2 million.
So what if we said 2 million? Yeah. For round numbers, let's just say 2
Right.
million.
Ryan, is that to demolish the building only, or what is that for?
Jeff's here.
Hi,
just so you know, making that to 2 million takes it to 58.3. Okay, because then all the
I
different percentages and
personally
things like
like
that
that.
add up.
And we-
Jeff, you missed some of the conversation. Basically, it's saying that we could sell bonds in that amount and basically provide that building over to the EDA. And it's more technical, and there's more information to that, but
In a nutshell.
it's letting them do what they want and getting a $2 million tax stipend.
I feel like with 2 million, we can put it right in the one question, auditorium, the 2 million for Rhode Island. We shouldn't get too many questions from NDE, and it's gonna keep us in that amount.
You said 58.1,
Three.
which is on the,
Right in that purple.
the purple.
Yep.
Right on, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trying to make them fine.
I was gonna
I
say,
got it.
if you're-
I meant to bring mine and I forgot.
Okay, John, what do you think of that?
Well, I'll negotiate myself down instead of 1.7. How about 2.5?
We came up to 2. I
Pardon?
keep-
Do you want to do the math on that one, Ryan?
We came up.
Yeah, maybe do the math.
We'll do it. Ryan will do the
What do
math,
we-
but we went to 2, which
Oh.
put it in the 58.3 million range, which over 25 years on a $100,000 house, the monthly is 1966, which we're talking about keeping that payment under $20.
I see. Yeah, I picked up that part.
So
You know
the way that this might, there's another, you could do the single question. From what I'm hearing, you may want to do the second question for the athletic field. You could do that, or if not, you could do, I don't know, maybe Mike might provide more insight to this, but a third question to add 2 million more to
Oh,
the Bird
so
Island.
have 2 million in the first
So
question?
yeah,
2
so you
million
get
more.
to 4 million for that building.
Does he have a 3 question?
You could have 3 questions.
Are you
Well-
gonna have trouble with NDE though with that?
That's where I don't,
Because I
that
don't wanna
seems
get
a
into
little,
where it has to pass by, like you said, 6%.
Right. Mike, were you paying attention or did you?
Yeah.
understand that?
I was paying attention, and we can bifurcate or put whatever, however you want to put these questions together. That's not a problem.
It might be a way of, you know, it's scary because for me being the outsider, I can see it now. We're basically gonna expose something potentially, like, oh, look at that question,
Yeah.
failed 0 to,
I would prefer not to have
You
that
know,
many.
it just,
I don't think I would have a separate question. I think this board needs to decide.
Could you do the math on the 2.5 million if we did go up to that?
I'm afraid it might create more and why.
Yeah,
That's key.
I like it as one.
I like it as one.
If you're gonna have 2 questions, have the athletic be the second one.
what are we gaining for that $2 million as a district from that Bird Island school?
support.
Well, support, yes.
Support to the Bird Island EDA for
Support,
that complex.
right,
So are we able to use the gym or not?
that's the idea.
We would work out a lease with it, yeah.
So with that, if we put 2 million in that question, we'd be working on a lease from them?
Well, that'd be a totally separate issue.
That would be,
Yeah, that's, we need to, there's an ownership question. And along with that goes, right, goes the 2 million. And then that would be, the lease would be separate from all of that.
To me, I think to be fully prepared, I would probably go into it assuming you're not getting any part of that building. Just
Right.
as a mindset of what we're gonna do is put $2 million and they can decide what's best for them.
yes,
If that's bringing the school back into it, great. If they decide it's more housing, whatever,
There's.
there you go. You know, that way it doesn't, you're not relying on each other to work something out that may or may not be worked out.
that's definitely what you want to end up with, yes.
So we're selling the building as is, and then we're providing this seed money for them to do as they wish. And then, like you said, if they invite us back to.
Right.
Well,
So-
it sounds a lot better than us doing parts and then,
No,
I mean, who knows?
2.5 million gets you up to 58.9.
So,
Which changes the
but how does that change?
monthly
the
rate.
You know,
We
that's
don't have that.
not gonna be a number that yeah. 600 grand. It's pennies, obviously, or not, it's tens of pennies.
Okay,
It's under 20.
I would be okay with that. What do you think?
With that $2 million that we put in there, that takes away our athletic complex or not?
but the thing that we would do, Jeff, is that we would not own the building with that. The sale would go to someone else, and if the school district would be, then they would have to work out a lease to whoever owns the building. Right?
But I think you're asking about a new football field and track.
I think we need to catch him up.
Maybe we should catch them up.
Yep, let's catch Jeff up here.
All right, appreciate it.
Well, and Sandy too, because I know Sandy kind of came in. So what we have been talking about is the ICS sheet, the ICS scope outline. We've been talking about those 4 options. And then we've also been talking about what we're potentially looking at in Rhode Island, how we're looking at ownership and possibly helping out with some money to work on that building and how we can make that all work and hopefully gain support for what we would like to do. So right now, I think a lot of people have talked about option 2 being preferable with the school and an auditorium, and then possibly having the athletic complex be a second question, not being part of that first option. So letting people decide if that is a need for now, or maybe that's a need down the road. So I don't know, add something, you guys. I'm
Yeah.
a little distracted, so.
We're trying to weigh an option that's less than $20 a month on a $100,000 home. That includes a new building, an auditorium, and money for Bird Island building. But we've eliminated the athletic field and complex from that discussion.
As part of that question, that would be a separate, if we would choose to do that.
Okay. That auditorium you're talking about, that's a 2-station gym, like you were saying earlier?
No.
Well, it's a 2.5 station gym in the building that is independent of the auditorium.
Oh, okay.
Auditorium would be like a 500 seat area, so like
For
musicals,
Yeah.
finance department would be utilizing that space.
You would design an auditorium and not a gymnasium with that. Then. That's what you're trying to get away from.
John,
Yes,
Ryan did do the numbers on 2.5 million.
Yes.
And it does sound like, potentially it could be where we'd like it to be. He didn't run what it would be per month, but on $100,000, but, that's not his deal.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what are you thinking about that? And if you like that, would you like option 2?
Just a point of clarity on option 2, because maybe I'm not reading it correct. Excuse me. Demolition of both current buildings. We keep the football field and track as is, correct?
Right,
With,
with maintenance, yes, with work on it.
Yeah, right, maintenance, of course. Excuse me. We have a new auditorium and then money for the EDA, Bird Island.
Right,
Yes.
Yeah, and to be ultra clear, John, option 2 does say demolition of both current buildings.
Yep,
It may or may not include demolition of the Bird Island building, depends on how we want to structure that. Doesn't mean we have to demo it, but if they want us to demo it and then give them the $2 million outside of that, or we give them the building and the $2 million. So in clarity for option 2, that word demolition of both current buildings probably should be, that's not accurate.
you said 2.5 or 2 point?
2.5,
Yeah, I'm negotiating with you.
2.5 is what we.
2.5,
Yeah, we were, Tracy and I seem to be okay with that.
I'm okay with
I
that.
support that amount.
At 2.5, you brought up the demolition, but we still have that, whatever it costs to demo this is not included in that 2.5. That's a
That's
separate,
That's up.
okay.
Which-
I'm comfortable with the 2.5 and the auditorium.
But
and
you
having
understand
a
that
question.
there's a whole conversation about this building that I don't know if anybody wants to have. We've got it to be demolished, right?
Still need it for a while yet, so.
Yeah.
So with that gymnasium not over there, will we have enough gymnasium space?
Derek's not here, so I can say, you have plenty. You have the Olivia building, if worse comes to worse, for a while. But this is less than your current gym space that you have. This is relying on that wellness center component to help out.
And we're not sure when that's gonna go, are we?
Well, our main concern is this.
I
Right?
understand that, but we still gotta look we gotta have enough gymnasium space.
or are you meaning the Bird Island gymnasium space, Jeff?
Yes,
That can, I would come assume that. I mean, not assuming.
Hopefully,
because right now we're short of gymnasium space, correct?
Well, technically, you won't be short. You'll actually still be more because with the new building and with Olivia, you'll have more gym space than you currently have.
I thought we were demolishing Olivia.
Well, that's where you don't have to demolish Olivia the day after you open that other building. And how to operate it and all those things you'll have to figure out. But if that is the stopgap between a wellness center, that could probably bridge the gap.
And there's the potential of the ground.
And there's
Are
still the
saying we don't
potential of
want to
that.
rely on that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's that stone, because it's not going to be our building.
that is a definite possibility.
And this is a possibility. So it
Yes.
seems like between the wellness center, Olivia and Rhode Island, it seems like we should be fine with this.
Now, Sandy, are you still with us?
I can hear half of what you guys are saying.
All right.
I didn't get the whole gist of everything.
I know this is really hard when it comes to, eventually we're gonna have to vote here. And it's hard with people coming in half, and so what information can we give you? What do you need? What have you heard? What have you not heard?
Well, so we're actually voting today on this?
Well, we're voting on,
Move forward.
You're voting to submit a review and comment.
yes, we're voting to submit the review and comment.
The review and comment will have the specifics of the project.
Okay,
So-
what did you completely come up with scenarios, because I only hear part of it.
Okay, so you got the ICS scope outline, correct?
Well, not with me here, no, I don't.
Okay, well, that you got an email, and
Yeah.
we are currently talking about option 2, which is the building and an auditorium, a 500 seat auditorium, and then adding some money in there for the Rhode Island, the hopefully future development of the Rhode Island building area, whatever. And keeping it within a certain dollar amount to keep the tax lower for everyone. I don't know, this is hard trying to, you're right in the same
Capital
page.
here. I get that. So the consensus here basically is, what do y'all thinking?
I think the majority of us have said option 2
Yeah,
with
You wanna just ask
2.5
for
to Rhode Island EDA.
that's for motion.
I'll make a
I-
motion.
Well,
No one's made the motion yet.
In there too earlier,
Make
but that was
motion.
fuzzy.
No one's made a motion yet.
No,
No.
she's
No.
just asking what the consensus is,
Oh,
John.
okay. I just
No.
make sure.
you know what, we honestly need to get everybody on board with this. So I want to talk it out. I mean, this is too important to try to get through. So Sandy, Amy, did you have anything else you want to add for Sandy?
What do you think, Sandy?
I'm kind of feeling like I'm lost here a little bit. I wish I was there, but I can't be right now, but, and I'm only, on the phone, it's such a blur, and I don't hear it all.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you what the options are, Sandy, just since you don't have it
I
there.
can hear better, yeah.
I came over to you. So option 1 is new pre-K 12 building, demolition of both current buildings, keep used current football field, no auditorium. Okay. Option 2 is new pre-K 12 building, demolition of both current buildings, keep used current football field along with the new auditorium. Option 3 is new pre-K 12 building, demolition of both current buildings, and a football field / track field, new athletic and activities complex, no auditorium. Option 4 is pre-K 12 building, demolition of both current buildings, a football track, new auditorium, new athletic and activities complex. So what we're kind of discussing is what option you want to go with. And do we want to add money to the EDA? And if so, how much? Fair?
Okay, so we give them money to do whatever to the school over there. And we're gonna end up paying a lease on that gym, or can we get a lifetime deal on there so we don't have to pay anything since we're giving them all the money for it?
That's something to be negotiated later. On it, because this is just, right now, I'm gonna ask for a motion in a second, just so we can get started on this, like the discuss and approve review and comment for building project. Let's get a motion in a second, and let's keep discussing so we can move forward here.
I'd like to make a motion then, number 2, with a slight variation. And I'm to read it so that we're all on the same page. New pre-K 12 building, demolition of both current buildings, keep and use current football field and track, new auditorium, 500 seat new auditorium. And my twist is going to be a 3.0 for EDA in Bird Island.
But we're demolishing the building.
It says demo, number 2 says demolition of both current buildings.
So then they did it for 3 point.
I just went from 2 point to 3. That's all.
Well, you went from 2.5 to 3. So you're at 5.
But he's saying the demo.
But you're saying you have to demo both buildings, which,
So then it's gonna be another.
That's what it says right here. It says,
So-
option 2 says demolition of both current buildings.
I thought Ryan
Yep.
explained that to you.
So so right now, we've been holding the demolition inside those numbers, John. So if you're adding that on top, that's another 600. So you're actually going from 2.5 to 3.6.
I guess I'm 2.5 to 3, and that would be something I think would be acceptable.
So demolition be included in that 3, is what you're saying, John?
Yes.
You need to have a second. If he put a motion on the table, have a second, and
He
then,
hasn't put a motion.
so.
He was
reviewing the
I'm sorry,
options.
so now he's saying.
No, I think that was the motion.
I thought he did a motion.
John,
I made a
are
motion.
you
Did you
making
make a motion, John?
Yes, I did make a motion.
I'm sorry, John, did you say demolition included in the 3 million? Or,
The money
Um,
is already there.
No, I didn't, but I can say, yeah, demolition included in the 3 million.
So it'd be a total of 3 million.
total of 3 million, but 600 each location for demolition, is that correct?
Yes,
So then the Bird Island EDA would end up with 1 point, or no, yeah, 1.8. Is that right? Is that what you're thinking, John? And is that, am I
No,
correct in those
EDA
numbers?
I'm thinking 3 million across the board.
If there's
3 million plus demolition,
3 million plus demolition,
right?
So that's quite a bit more,
that's quite a
right?
bit more. You have,
That's
because we're
3.6
talking
million.
demolition for both buildings is 1.2 million, is that correct?
So it's
Yeah, but
More.
let's leave
Okay.
Olivia out of it. If we're at 3 million, including demolition. Hold on a second.
John, you need to get your motion figured out, and then we need to have a second, and
Yeah.
then we'll discuss it.
Waiting on Ryan.
Okay, so if we're at 3 million, all in, includes demolition of Bird Island, a separate 750 for this building. That's
Ryan,
it.
can you talk a little louder?
That's at 59.5.
Okay.
So
59.
we have 600,000 allocated for demolition. So if we go then to 3.6 million for Bird Island, obviously then we go up to just over 60 million.
With this motion.
That's,
Say it again. You should spell that out again, Ryan. Mine,
okay, so what's included, we know. New pre-K-12 building. Auditorium. Demolition of Olivia. The maintenance to the football field and track. And $3 million for Bird Island.
Yes,
So that puts us at 60 million,
That puts us at 59.5.
59.5.
Okay, is there a second on John's motion?
So it's 0.5 million, it's 500,000 more than what we discussed earlier.
Yeah,
is there a second?
Is there a second on John's motion? Not hearing a second. The motion dies, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So is there a second, another motion?
yes. Does anyone else have a motion they would like to make?
I don't understand a new auditorium in there, why we have to do that. That's part of why I wouldn't second. I mean, if,
That is something that we found in in the survey, sorry, thank you. That was something that people seem to want to support and be behind. So like, that is, I guess, why it's included. That we think, some of us think that it's important.
Okay,
I'll make the motion to this effect. Everything the same, except we'll change it from 3 to 2.5, which I think you guys were at before.
With the demolition.
With the demolition?
So
That includes,
the 2.5 includes the demolition that's already in there, so it would be less than two. I mean, it'd be 2.5 total.
That's 58.9.
That's what we talked about. I
Right.
believe, right?
Right, that is what we talked about.
Okay, so
That's right around $20.
Okay,
I'll second that, John.
all right.
now, just a minute before you second that, I want to make sure, did you understand?
Right, why don't you let the chair repeat that motion?
Oh, boy. Really?
Well, maybe
This has
Ryan wants
been
to
a
help.
heck of a
maybe Ryan
day.
will- I can do it. You know,
Option 2, correct?
yes,
Is what we're looking at with, with the auditorium, with an additional, well, with the, with 2.5 million for
It'd be option 2 with 2 million,
option 2 of 2 million, yes, because there's already,
1.9. Yeah.
right, okay, yes, yes. John, that's
say that
understandable?
again.
Yes, go ahead.
So it'd be
Yeah.
an additional 1.9 because there's already
600.
600,000 in, or roughly in that. Which would keep us where we would like to be.
And can we be clear about that? We wouldn't be doing the demolition, they would take care of it.
So we're giving them
We'd
2.5
be
to
giving
say,
them
here, do whatever you
2.5
want.
and say, here you go, right?
Well, right, with that no ownership.
Maybe Mike, can you give do you have a opinion on whether the 2.5 should the school demo the building, or should they just give the 2.5 and the building to the EDA?
And then just-
I believe you could do either. I think MDE is gonna listen to our arguments. We've done our job as a consolidated school district for a long time, and I think we can make a good argument either way. I think we should be able to have the flexibility to do it. I think the dollar amount committed to that project is the most important thing. We can work out the details if they so choose to push that with us, Ryan. And
Yeah.
they meaning MDE.
And so to clarify that, we would say it's a cap of 2.5 million. So if it costs $1 million to demo, then it's $1.5 million. If we don't spend any money on demo, they get 2.5 million.
Okay. Yep, I'm good at that.
Is that what everybody understands?
John, is that good with you?
Just for point of clarity, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Try it again. Just say it, repeat. I'm crossing things off my list here as I go.
okay.
The Christmas one?
Yeah, do I get a gift? No. All right, it's option 2.
Yep.
With an additional 1.9 million for put on the Rhode Island site to bring that to 2.5. Correct? I'm trying to make it as simple as possible here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
We're talking millions of dollars.
So what she's saying, so if I can put words in your mouth, you're saying that the committed dollars are 2.5 million, of which we have 600,000 already in the plan for it. It just gives you flexibility up to $2.5 million for that particular piece of the project.
Right.
What is it in simple terms what's the line item to identify the 2.5 million? I mean, can we take demolition out? So because if we're handing the money over, they get to do what they want with it. You know, just so there's no confusion.
Mhm.
That seems to be a lot of confusion. And
The words I've been using, and I don't know, I'm just pulling them out, is to transfer ownership.
okay,
So
I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't know if I'm evil like that, I don't know, but that's,
That would be the
we're
purpose. of-
facilitating the ability to transfer that owner. Transfer that owner.
Okay, so John, are you okay with that as the motion?
Yes,
Okay, and Melissa, you're okay to second that?
yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Jeff and Sandy, anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I'm, that auditorium thing, if we can, are they talking about putting a arts thing over there, or do you know, or have you heard, or anything
Where?
in Bird Island if we do this?
I
That's part of their description of the building.
mean.
That's would be their,
You read that.
Was an email as well. We got an email from Sue Peterson on some of their ideas.
That's why I'm asking the question.
but that's what you're doing with the building is going to give them that option to do what they decide. But that shouldn't, your focus is on this development here.
Reason I'm asking this development that we're talking about is if this goes like they might be doing something with the arts, do we actually need an auditorium of our own?
Well, we don't know that they are, right? I mean, it kind of,
Jeff,
It kind of looks like it, but I'm not sure.
if you go back to the survey results, we had a very good response in adding an auditorium to this new facility. I think it's a very high need. I talked about that earlier. I know you weren't on right away, but this actually, you know, you think about the amount of space that we use currently for our fine arts programs in our gyms, on our stages, and that alleviate that component. We will have this extra space for musical, for one-act play, for
band,
for
choir,
all these community
those.
uses as well. And I think it will be a bigger selling point to our voters.
I also think, Jeff, I don't think we can, well, I don't think that an auditorium would be even part of what they've discussed for the Bird Island building. I don't believe, but I mean, even if it is or isn't, that we can't, you know, rely on what they're gonna do and change what we're gonna do based on that. I think we can include the auditorium in our,
Well, and if we
in our
have
bond
it,
referendum.
they're not gonna duplicate it because it's
Right,
within our whole
exactly,
area.
they do
Use
something,
it, you know,
right,
community
absolutely,
can use it.
The,
absolutely.
the description they have is an east wing of artist studios and open concept rental lots. My interpretation of that is artists doing art, not
me too.
performance arts, similar to what you'd find in the theater.
and in option,
Attorney would probably be a real good asset, just simply because we have so many large businesses in town here that they would probably put on seminars of some sort if we had a spot that we could do that.
Right?
And
You
we
think-
could rent it from the school even, and realistically, like, Melissa, I think it was Melissa that said, with the bands and choirs and all the things the school does with that, I think we would probably utilize it more than we realize.
Yeah. And I think it could be a good selling point too, as part of the bond.
And you'd be next to, I'm assuming, one of the largest employers in
Yeah.
your community that also could use.
Right.
and that auditorium will cost 4.3 million. I'm-
You're looking at construction costs, the total cost is around 6 million. Yes. Simple answer, 4.38.
All right, any other discussion or questions? Discussion. That's where I was going with that apparently. Anything else? Anyone else? All right, hearing nothing else, we are going to vote and we're gonna do our roll call. We'll start with John.
Aye,
Tracy,
I,
Sandy,
I
Melissa,
I,
Jeff,
I'm pretty torn, but
okay,
I think it's gonna hurt us or hurt us in a way too with our athletic complex, but I guess I'll go aye.
thank you. Jamie,
Aye.
and I myself, I am an aye. Thank you, motion carries.
Thank you. Now we got to work.
All right, yes, Ryan has work to do. All right,
Robert.
new business here, moving on, we have COVID update. We keep this super short, that'd be great.
Okay, we
Sorry.
had a real long session for that, but I think if Jim and Brett already left us, I guess. Anyway, there's a lot of change happening right now. Is he?
Right there,
I'm ready.
right there.
No, Jim, but Brett, there's Brett.
He's here.
We had a lot of discussion because our COVID numbers continue to increase drastically, and this weekend they really did, and they have some real concerns of the school here, that we're working with the State Department, the governor on Friday spoke to the schools and superintendents and everything, so I just wanted them to address it. I sent you off some information from Heather Mueller, who is the deputy commissioner, and so I've had conversations with her, and so I'm going to turn over those two, and they've got 5 minutes.
Set the timer. You just said everything I was gonna say.
Okay.
Any questions? Sorry. Yeah, so the governor's address last week, he came on and said what they've been telling us for a while, and I think I mentioned it, that the county infection numbers are no longer the most important concern, whether, as to which learning model we're choosing. And why did I have, oh, yeah. So a couple of the other things that he said, he wants to see teachers get 30 more minutes of prep during the school day. Those teachers anyway that are teaching both students in the building and at home. And we agree, our teachers are stressed out. There was a statewide survey that went out on this, and there's a lot of stress in the building. You can cut it with a knife. So we're looking at ways to do this. I had from a couple sources, people suggest, well, what about Wednesdays? Since we're at the high school, we're hybrid anyway on Wednesdays. We could take those 30 minutes a day and block that into a 2.5 hour period and do an early out on Wednesdays. So that's what we're looking at doing. Dale, do you want to add anything on that?
It's just right now, we're not sure what the governor is really, everybody's trying to figure out how it's going to impact us yet. And right now, he's just basically talked to the 30 minutes and we can plan it. So, but they're still looking at that. I got an MSBA and an MAS, an email that they're trying to work with the governor to make sure they understand what he was saying. But one thing he's very concerned about is our staff, the stress, and mental health.
All right. So we are looking at our county numbers, and our county numbers are rising quickly. We had our meeting last week with the COVID Advisory Council. It was pointed out that 2/3 of the county's infections, positive tests, have happened in the last 2 weeks. The numbers jumped up on Friday again, and I did some figuring, and a full quarter of those infections now have happened in the last 8 days. That was as of Friday. The numbers jumped up by about 10 again today. We're at 86.91 infections per 10,000 people in the county. So that's alarming. For most of this, we really hovered around 20s and 30s for a long time. So while again, we don't have to use those as the most important figures, it's also hard to ignore them when they've nearly tripled. So that's alarming for us. I did find out a lot of those are in Franklin and Fairfax. I think 20 of them, I think, were at a nursing home down there. 10 residents, 10 staff members. So again, it's nice that they're not in here. Sorry if you live there. Let's see. So they're trending upwards. We've got, and I'll have Brett talk a little bit about this, but one of our big concerns as an administrative team is if we have to move to the hybrid at the elementary school, it's very, very difficult because we don't have enough staff to cover all the teachers and paras doing their same work, and we have to provide childcare for the parents that are sending their kids. So Brett, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and the one thing that I guess we're concerned about is the kids that are staying home. Who's watching them? It's a little different at the 7-12 level where they can be a little bit more self-reliant. You know, a third grader or a fourth grader or even a kindergartner. Somebody's got to get them up in the morning to get them ready to go online. So that's going to be our biggest issue if we have to go online, if we have to go just their hybrid, is what do we do with the kids that are at home and providing the daycare here, because we're going to have to do that as well with having kids in the building and still having to service those kids in the building. So that's a big concern that we've got going on right now.
Yeah, we've had hours and hours and hours of conversations on this. It's one of our biggest stressors right now is how does this work with the hybrid at the elementary level. I want to talk a little bit about some struggles. We'll both talk about struggles for teachers here in our remaining 4 minutes. As I said a little bit ago, the stress level is high. There's a struggle for teachers. They're trying to keep students engaged here at school and as well at home. It's too easy for these kids at home to suddenly not be on camera anymore. And now the teacher doesn't know where they are. So those kids are being counted absent, unexcused, just as if they walked out of a classroom, which is what we would do. Again, trying to keep them engaged, it's very difficult and it's very different. You can see just in our meetings here, the struggles that we have having somebody on the phone, having some people on a Zoom, some people here personally. I taught for 13 years, and it's just occurring to me right now that I'm doing nothing to engage those people on the Zoom. I'm only looking at you. These teachers struggle with this. Do you want to talk about elementary concerns?
Yeah,
They are different.
Yeah, we don't have as many online learners, but we still have some. Our issue on the online is, again, who's supervising the kid at home? The interaction part, that's probably the biggest portion of it, because how do you have a class full of 20 and then you've got 2 online that have to work in a group with 1 kid here? That's probably been the biggest issue, especially when we're doing our guided reading groups where we've got anywhere from 3 to 5 kids in a group. So that is an issue that we've had a lot of stress on, and how do we do it? So you'll see some students out in the hallway on their iPad talking with the students at home. So that's one way to do it, but then you got to get the teacher involved in it as well. So with a class full of 15 to 22 kids.
They're also, go ahead, Jeff.
Numbers are climbing. Do you know what age level they're climbing in or not?
I do. It's all ages. I've got the numbers. I can get them to you. I can email you tomorrow.
Are we seeing it in the older generation or the younger generation?
It's in all age groups right now.
Right now, Jim, just to let you know, the numbers we got today, the largest group right now are 20-year-olds.
Okay.
That's and in the county, and it used to be it was all this old people that it's creeping. 10 to 20 is 13, and the 20s are 28. So that's not true anymore, and so That's the numbers we got today.
Reason I asked, because I heard on the radio today that most of the ones that are having the death problems are in the elderly, in the nursing homes. So that's why I asked the question.
That's certainly accurate.
That's
Yeah,
probably,
the death is, but it's the numbers that are rising right now, are the younger ones.
Yeah, one of the issues is that with younger people, they tend to have much more mild symptoms. So maybe a kid just has a little bit of a sore throat, and that's something that they typically would power through, or maybe they've just got a slight headache, and nobody's really concerned about that, but they could be passing that along to everyone in the room, which leads me to one of the other big stressors that the whole staff is facing, especially at the elementary level, I think, is just this: what do I do? What level of risk am I at? We've got, Brett, maybe you can talk about some of the issues in your staff. You set a list out, and we've got staff members who's lost loved ones to the disease already. What else?
So I've got 11 classroom teachers, K4, and in every grade level and basically every staff member, there's a concern. Elderly parents, health concerns for themselves. Children, you know, some have compromised children at home. So that's a big issue right now for us. And I'm worried about it for my staff, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's a lot of stress for everybody. So just wanted to convey that out there. This is hard for a lot of people. So, but specific concerns here at the school.
yeah, and I think what we're asking, it was interesting to hear the governor talk about this Friday, plus the two commissioners that are working very much with his Department of Education and the Health Department. All three of them, they're telling one thing, and that's for communities to come together now, and not gather together, but I mean, realize that the only way we're going to slow this thing down is if we all respect it. COVID doesn't care, so we know that. So wear the mask, social gatherings, limit the numbers, and
Stay home when you're sick.
stay home when you're sick. And
I'm going to talk to that. That's on my list. I've got a staff member right now who's homesick because they got together with an old friend last week. The old friend didn't tell them that they weren't feeling very well that day. I believe Sunday maybe the old friend tested positive, and now I've got a staff person at home, and they went in for a COVID test today. Won't find the results for 5 days, possibly. So, yeah, if you are sick, thank you, Jill, stay home. You got a little headache, it's not worth passing that on to your friends or your family. Which brings me to Thanksgiving. On my phone call and letter that went out on Friday, I said a phrase that I'm going to try not to use anymore. I said, if you're having a large gathering, well, it's not about a large gathering. It's about a gathering of people that aren't normally gathering. So if you've got your group of friends that you've been getting together with all along, that's one thing. Or you hang out with your neighbor and barbecue or whatever we do in the winter. That's fine. But if now suddenly on Thanksgiving you've got some family coming here, or you're going to see family in another place that you aren't typically with, what we're asking families to do is, first of all, we don't recommend doing that. But if you do feel that you need to do that, and I understand the need to be with family. So if you are going to do that, you're going to do something out of your normal routine, we're going to ask you to just keep your kid distance learning for 2 weeks. If they do bring something back, then it's not a problem. They're not bringing that into the classroom. They're not infecting their peers, the staff. So that's something we're really going to be pushing for. And
Does that
again,
include going like out of state as well?
it will include going out of state. Yeah, I suppose.
I think
That, and I'll speak to that. The state has been changing what their requirements are. And this has been so difficult for us because I'll have people call me early on in the school year. If you even like thought about going to Wisconsin, you have to stay at home for a month. But they've really relaxed that now. And so we've been following these state guidelines, and now these numbers are starting to climb back up, and we're getting concerned by that. So, it's difficult because this is a great example of whatever we decide to do, we're going to anger about half of the people in the district. That's just the way it is, and I guess we have to err on the side of being healthy, keeping people safe. Sorry, I interrupted somebody. Probably did. That was
5 minutes? Thank you. No, it's the numbers are escalating, and we want kids in school. We think they're the safest here. We want our staff here. And so we're crying to the communities to really think now, gather as families, be careful, respect this COVID, and stay with people you've been socializing with and you're comfortable with. But if you go to out of the area, then think about that. It's COVID doesn't worry about for that part. So, but we're asking for help from the community and to work with us on this. We want kids in school. We want our staff here. We want them to be here, healthy and safe. All of us. So.
Okay, any further questions for any of our administrators on this?
look into the camera.
All right, hearing nothing, I think I'm gonna, oh wait, one thing. Thursday nights.
Thursday at 6 o'clock?
Thursday at 6 o'clock, we need to canvass vote, so we need to make sure we've got 4 people. I mean,
Here.
everybody could be here, that can be here, should be here, but we just need to make sure we have a quorum.
I'm
So,
planning to be here, but I'm on jury duty, and they
Oh,
said
no.
that if I did get picked, it could go into the evening.
Okay.
It could change, that's fine with me, but I'm planning to be here. I didn't know
okay,
how to-
Sandy, are you able to be here Thursday?
Thursday, well, it's at 6, right?
Yes,
Hopefully.
okay.
It'll be a short meeting.
John, are you available?
Yeah, hopefully, yeah, I should be able to.
Okay, John, are you available? He's on mute. Jeff, would you be available?
Doubtful.
Okay. So hopefully we'll have,
The girls have a volleyball game, I can zoom in on my drive, but actually in person, I won't.
okay, I need 4 people here, so one way or the other. We need to
I'm
get that done.
guessing I'll be here.
Okay.
But if I get picked for jury, then I'm not sure what to do about that. Hopefully
Yeah,
that doesn't
I
happen.
know. We'll figure it out, but,
I can help you.
okay, so it's Thursday at 6. So,
They send out a Zoom request.
yes, I will.
We're gonna
With
hear-
I
that,
think Joyce sent one out. Did she send one out today?
No.
I didn't see
Everybody?
anything,
She didn't? Okay.
no. So with that,
She had to leave early, so maybe.
Question, Jim.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
You have enough people, you said?
You can make it, John, even, on Zoom, I'm assuming that's gonna be okay, so we'll take you, John, if you can be here.
Okay,
Okay,
What
perfect,
time?
6 o'clock,
6 o'clock.
You're gonna do it on Zoom also?
yeah, I don't know how else we can do it at these days, so,
Well, I might be able to make that then.
okay, perfect. So we just need a quorum, so that's really what we're looking for.
It'll be short.
Okay, so with that, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn, if I could get a second. Motion's made by Hanson, seconded by Buchdahl. Now we will vote. Start with Tracy.
Aye.
Sandy?
Hi.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
John?
yeah, I.
And myself, I am an aye. Thank you all very
Thank
much.
you.
It is 7:25. Have a good rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thanks.